Hover fishing is about meat and potatoes and basic as it gets. Okay, you need almost no current, calm water, and you need a pile of fish, and ideally warm water. We have that in Washington in a lot of places, but you need to know that the fish are there. You need warm water because they're going to stay down on the bottom. They're going to try to get as cold as water as they can find, so that means they're going to be right on the bottom, if not a foot or two off the bottom. And generally, you don't want to hover fish over 25 feet. You want to stay less than 30. I'd say you want to try to stay less than 27. I don't hover fish in more than 27. Most of the time it's 20, 22, 25, sometimes 27 max. And the reason for that is the relay, the telegraph of the bite from down there all the way up to you. Slight bow, even though there's very little current, that bite telegraphing through to the tip of your rod, you have a much higher percentage of being able to see it and react in time than if you went deeper water. It's going to take longer for that to telegraph through to you. And although there are plenty of YouTube videos out there of people showing you that they swallowed the eggs, look, the hook's in its throat. In hover fishing, if I catch, or me and my clients catch 200 fish out of 30 days, 3 of those fish will swallow. So don't count on them munching and trying to swallow your bait, because there's no current, and these no current situations, or slower than walking pace current, the fish do not have to be aggressive. So when they're right off the bottom, they're hot. They don't like being that they're hot, and they're just milling around in big schools, and these big schools are moving around in this deep hole. They're moving around at slower than walking pace, and they can walk up to your eggs, inhale, exhale. In current, when you side drift eggs or you bobber drift eggs, it's going by. If they want it, they know I have to grab it. I have to grab it now, and I have to choke it down, and I have to get back tucked in position facing upriver. So that's why most oftentimes it'll be in the roof of the mouth, corner of the mouth, or down in their throat area, because they're being much more aggressive. In hover fishing, 9 times out of 10, it's right in the top beak of their mouth, the top roof of their mouth. And it's just that lack of aggression in calm water. But what we're going to try to do is point out some stuff that I've gotten dialed in, that I've learned from other people, that I've experimented and figured out. But a lot of this information, most of it, is in tidbits and pieces all over YouTube in different videos. And it's up to you guys. You guys are getting a little cheat sheet now. And you'll combine it with what you already do and what already works for you and what you already like and other stuff that you've seen, and hopefully it'll help you make you successful. But one is, any egg cure will work. It's your base cure. So this is Potskis. I primarily use Potskis, but any bait cure will work that they have at Sportsman's or any other place. They all pretty much have the same stuff. They're pretty much the same ingredients in here. What changes and what you need to change is based on how far away from the ocean you are. Okay? If you're closer to the ocean, you want sweeter. If you're further away, you want saltier. That's the general rule of thumb. Closer to the ocean, I want more herring, anchovy, sweeter tasting bait. Further away from the ocean, I want shrimp, krill, salt. They're craving salt, and I predominantly hover fish above Bonneville, but I've hover fished in the Sandy, I've hover fished in the Cowlitz, the Lewis, the certain deep holes in the Kalama. There's even certain spots in the lower river that have a slack eddy of the Columbia that you can find, and it'll work. But you gotta have calm water. But it's a very simple technique. But you want to start off with your base cure, and again, there's plenty of videos out there on that. But you can get some pre-bought eggs that are already cured. That's fine too. Or you can cure them up yourself, store them in your fridge. But the night before fishing is when the magic happens. When you got to add depending on the area you're in, what they're gonna like. If you're upriver, you're gonna need to add the sodium sulfite. Just like you would add salt to a steak. Not too much, not too little, just enough. Sodium sulfite, perhaps not in stock today, but they also have krill powder. I want to krill powder that, just like you would salt your eggs, you would salt your steak. Here's some liquid krill. I've also seen liquid sand shrimp, which is why I grabbed this one. So this is sand shrimp. They love sand shrimp. They would not hover fish without a piece of sand shrimp. So one live sand shrimp will make about 4 or 5 baits. So, but I put sand shrimp oil, krill powder, and sodium sulfite on if I'm above Bonneville. If I'm below Bonneville, Kalama, Lewis, Sandy, Cowlitz, then I'm using the base cure. I'm using krill powder. I'm still using sand shrimp, but I might even add brown sugar the night before. That's it. Sweeter, saltier, depending on how far away from the ocean. If you like to troll super baits, 1-to-1 ratio with your tuna and your sea salt that's non-iodized. So if I have a can of tuna and I dump that in a Tupperware, I'm going to fill that entire can of tuna with non-iodized sea salt, and that's going to be a 1-to-1 ratio with my tuna. I'm going to mix that up, and that's going in my super bait. It's leaching salt as you troll. And every 10-15 minutes, I'm freshening it up. I want leach and salt out of every super bait. So same thing with eggs. If you're upriver far enough, you want to have plenty of salt. It's real simple. Your main line, you're going to slide your weight on. You're going to have a swivel. Generally, people put a bead between their weight and their swivel. I use a little chain swivel just for any twists. I'm going to have a 2-foot leader. And at the end of my bead chain, I'm going to have a snap. Why do I have a snap? If I put that snap on and I use a surgeon's loop knot, or a surgeon's knot, check this out. If I hold it like that, I can move this surgeon's knot without pulling on the snap. That is going to catch me more fish than the guy next to me who's tying direct, because the fish is going to feel him sooner. So this can slide back and forth, so when they grab it and start to go away, it has more range of motion before he feels the main line.
You said that was called a surgeon knot?
This is called a surgeon's knot.
Surgeon's loop.
Or a surgeon's loop.
Yep.
And it goes direct to your snap direct to your bead chain. So I got a range of motion, because when you're fishing in no current situation, your weight's going to be right above this, and these eggs are going to be hanging straight down off the bottom. If the table is the bottom of the river, you want to be 2 to 4 feet off the bottom. Dead hang. So when they come by, they can move it a ways and before they feel you. The best bite that you're looking for, 9 times out of 10, and this is what I train people in the morning in the dark to be ready for as soon as it's legal light. This is what we're looking for. You're looking for a very faint bite. Again, there's no current. So what you would normally consider a squaw fish bite or any other type, maybe a small trout, is what you want to react to. Don't be, even though it is a 20 or 30 pound or bigger king salmon, the bite is very light. So this is the best bite you're going to get. You ready?
Yeah.
Wow, that is it. And if you react to that, if you're a sprung trout, you will stick big king salmon. Again, no current. They don't have to slam it. Everybody's waiting for that. Let's gonna start tugging. You got to make it happen. So if you're side drifting, you don't even got to set the hook. The line goes tight. You can feel the head shake. He's on. There's plenty of current. You don't have to worry about it. But I grabbed some rods here that I thought matched the Akumas that I have. This is a Akuma X series. It's a 7, I believe this is a 7.6.
7.6.
That's a 7.3, I think. That's a laser speed stick by Luz. That's a bait caster setup. This is a spinning rod setup. But you'll notice how short both of them are. In order for you to have a quick hook set, you cannot have a long rod. In order to be fast, you need a short rod with a stiff backbone and a sensitive tip. There's also a lot that goes into how you hold it. When you're side drifting, you can hold it like this. It doesn't really matter. You can hold it like this. And most fishermen, when they set the hook, they set to their chest. It's like a bass fishing thing. I don't know. Everybody wants to set to their chest. But when you're fishing vertical, straight down, you need to keep your forearm straight. You need to keep the rod angled down. Oftentimes you can rest the guide on the side of the boat. We'll put a rag on the side of the boat and people will rest it on there. But you want to be at an angle, an incline or decline. And as soon as you see that subtle bite, it's 110% as hard as you can, up, straight, keeping your forearm straight. So with the vertical presentation, you have to do that. And I will see people be late 10 times, and they're watching other people hit fish. Once they see other people hit a fish, they realize, okay, I'm just a little bit behind it. You can start to see them believe in it. Okay, this is no joke. And you see them give 100% on the next one, and they get it every time. So you got to be aggressive with hover fishing. If you're back bouncing on the Lewis or the Cowlitz or the Kalama or the Sandy, that angle and that current, the fishes, you're just lifting like this, and it is a hook set to yourself. But when you're vertical, it's got to be straight up. You can't fold the rod, A-frame the rod to you. But these are really light rods, and when you get a 20 or 30 pound king on these, it's a lot of fun, especially in a deep hole. Where are they going to get tangled on? They're not going to get away from you. They're not going to wrap you around anything. There's very few, in most deep holes, there's not a lot of obstacles you have to worry about. So. But this is an Abu Garcia line counter. Sometimes if you have a fish finder, the later in the fall you get, the colder the water gets, the higher up they get in that deep hole. So end of August, first part of September, they're on the bottom. September 15th, end of September, depending on how long the summer's going, they're going to start to rise. As it starts to cool, you get the first couple of rains, the river picks up in height. You'll notice on your fish finder, those fish that 2 to 4 weeks ago were dead on the bottom are now 4 to 6 feet on. So you can either know what in line cranks that is. Okay, that's 4 line cranks to get 4 feet up, and you can test that on the floor of your boat. Or you can use your fish finder and a line counter, which is what this Abu Garcia digital line counter is. Just to kind of show you the size of the bait, if I take a sand shrimp tail and I cut it into 4 pieces with scissors, it'd be a pretty small piece. It would not be too big. Again, you want them to inhale the bait. So if this pink bead here is the sand shrimp, and this is your eggs, again, you want about the size of a quarter. We're using this instead of the real thing to prevent a mess. You wrap your egg loop around, a light cinch, and that's about it. They can fully inhale that. Now, if you go with too big, if you go with ping pong size, you're not going to pick up as many fish. But when you go real small like that, almost steelhead size, they can inhale it when they come up to it. They breathe in. That's how they grab bait. And your hookup ratio is a lot better. If I was a side drifting on the Cowlitz, I'd be using ping pong size. If I was on Sandy, the Lewis, or the Climb, ping pong ball size. Got a decent sized chunk of roe and a bigger piece of sand shrimp. But if I'm hover fishing, I'm going real small. So that's a couple examples. But you can get pre-store-bought bait, pre-made bait. It works. You just want to add these extra scents add additional salt, add additional sugar the night before to kind of freshen it up. And I use 12-pound to 15-pound line on my leader, and I'm using 20-pound braid. If I'm using a bait caster, I'm using 20-pound braid. If I'm using a spinning rod, I'm using 15-pound main line on it. So really light line. And a lot of times these hover fisheries are right next to the main trolling fishery. So there'll be 100 boats going by in a trolling pattern constantly, and the hover fishermen are off to the side. And we're getting off the water at 8 or 9 with 6 or 7 adult-sized kings. And you have that, 100 plus rods out that are still trying to grind it out till 12, 1 o'clock. Most of them not being as successful. The boat position is a lot. It helps to have a Minn Kota, but you can double anchor off the back and the front. You just need to let out plenty of line. Does everybody here have a boat?
No.
I don't personally.
Well, you're in luck.
Because you can go with Tony.
Well, yeah. But you don't need a $130,000 guide boat. You don't need a $10,000 boat. A canoe will get it done. A kayak will get it done. I saw 2 kids in a pram whose family member must have taught them what to do. And they were right out there with us. They had the right bait, they had the right technique, and they were getting king after king after king.
Yeah, probably more than the other people in the boat.
Yeah, I've seen guys in a U-boat, the inflatable.
Yeah.
Kick her out on the lower Cowlitz to the deep hole above the mouth of the Tootle. I've seen them do it at Drano above Stevenson. So really it doesn't matter what you're in, but you do need to be holding still. So if it's windy, you're going to have more of a struggle with the smaller boat.
Yeah.
If you don't have a Minn Kota spot lock. Those changed the game. I got one, they're stupid expensive, and they're, but they changed the game. I mean, it doesn't matter what the wind does or if a boat goes by, it holds you dead still right where you need to be. Before that, everybody was double anchoring. You let off the anchor, let out 30 yards, let off another anchor, pull yourself to center, and hope, pray that it wasn't the monster that pulled you right into the anchor line. So, but that's how they did it for years. But it's a really simple fishery, a really simple technique. Keep it small, keep everything light. The guy that's using 20-pound line is not going to get as many fish to hold on. The guy that's using a bigger piece of bait, on the Oregon coast, on the Silex, they'll use salmon egg skein that's the size of your fist with a sturgeon-sized live sand shrimp under a bottom, and catch fish on the Silex, no problem. They go through pounds and pounds of bait on one trip. But for our rivers, it seems like smaller is better. But you can back bounce, same theory. You can have a dropper off of your swivel, 1 to 2 feet. Increase your leader length to 3 or 4 feet. Egg cluster. If the deep hole in your area that you like to fish, it has faster moving water in it, well then you're going to be back bouncing. So you're going to be lifting up, letting it drift back, touching bottom. Lifting up, letting it drift back, touching bottom. It's pretty simple, but don't blink. No blinking. For sure. You guys have any questions?
Lots of them. So you're not drifting then. You're using your Minn Kota to hold in place. You're not drifting with that slow current downstream, going back up and running back up and going through it again. You're holding in one spot.
Right. With hover fishing, you're in one spot. You're in a calm, deep hole. That's what you're looking for. And there's a few of those on every river, every small tributary anyway. And there's even more in the big river.
Like on the lower Columbia, is it pretty hard? Because I know a couple, but they're like deep. It's hard to find something.
Yeah, you got to find a back eddy. We were just talking about before you got here, but there's a calm spot below the mouth of the Cowlitz by the lumber mill that everybody stays out of. They try to troll the seam. Got the line of wobbler guys, and then you got the trollers that come around and they hug that seam and go up. Well, if you fade back and find 20, 25 feet of water with no current, watch your fish finder, you're going to see those kinks scooting by.
Yeah, like I'm below even though they're deep, would they just go up to the shallower spot, or are they just gonna hang out in the deep stuff? Because some of those holes go down to like 90 feet.
Well, yeah, I wouldn't necessarily do that. I think most salmon in the lower river on outgo are going to be in 30 to 50.
Mhm.
But on an incoming, the cooler water's pushing in, generally they lift off the bottom and they go. So you're looking for an area, a stretch of river that's shallower, that's 30 feet to the shore.
Okay.
And then you're hoping for a calmer spot that's 15 to 25 that you can find. A lot of sloughs have them too.
Mhm.
Anywhere you can get a current break. There's several sloughs between Ridgefield and Cathlamet that have a couple deep holes. But Drano's super popular. Smaller tributaries have nice deep holes. And hey, there's a lot of guys that use bobbers. They figure out what depth that is on their fish finder, or they just lower it over the boat and feel bottom, and they adjust their bobber knot, and then they pull up 2 or 4 feet, and they use a bobber. I can't do that. My OCD won't let me do it because there's something about the fish feeling the bobber before, and then I see it. I want to see it and react. I don't want to see it and then react over here. Like I want it to be direct. And once you kind of get used to, there's any other fishing trip. There's a lot of talking and a lot of communicating and eye contact. With hover fishing, everybody's locked in. You got to be locked in. If you're the guy that's like, you're talking, you're gonna be last. You'll be last. I mean, everybody. I think usually like August 20th through October 10th. Each person in the boat will get 6 to 8 bites. That's it. So if you aren't on it, that's 6 to 8 bites times 7 people because I'm fishing too. So you got to be on it. You want to capitalize. And I think the rules are set up where the first part of that you can't party fish. So you make sure to check your reg. So that means if I hook one and land it, my rod gets deleted out of the equation. So now I can't help. If you hook one early, right off the bat at sunrise, you're deleting the rod, you're putting it away. And then I think, I got to check the regs again, but usually right around like September 10th or 12th or something like that, they remove that deal. And for the rest of the time, you can party fish until the whole group has to. You can get coho, hover fishing, and you can still get steelhead. We get incidental steelhead, you get incidental coho hover fishing. The bite is much different. It won't be that single slow draw. It'll be a chomp, chomp, chomp. It's very obvious. But,
Any split shot to bring those eggs and bait down, or below your weight on that loop line? There's no weight, just the weight of the eggs are bringing it down?
Yeah, in a no current situation, you don't need it. Also, there's a couple deep holes that have no current. What's considered the upper Cowlitz or Lake Scanawaw, so it's above Rife Lake. You launch, you go around the corner, there's a couple holes in there that are 20, 25 foot deep, and the only thing that's going to be up there is kings, because if you watch the Barrier Dam fish count, they tell you where they're dumping those fish when they reach their quota, and they'll say, we dumped 600 and something king salmon at Lake Scanawaw. And then next week, we dumped 800 and something, the next week 300, and the following another 700. It's time to go. And go up and around the corner and find a deep, calm spot that has little, but with little to no current, you don't have to add any split shot. It'll hang straight down. You do need to remember, when you lower it down, the weight is pulling this down, and you don't want this to go so fast straight down the tornadoes around your main line. So when you do lower it down, you kind of want to fade your rod to the right, so this kind of trails it down and then lays flat. And if you don't, and one of the biggest, most common mistakes is people lower it down, they feel bottom here, they reel up 2 cranks, and then they drop their rod down to the gone. You just put this, instead of your bait being, if this is the bottom of the river, your bait being here, you just put it like that. Now you're going to get an incidental sturgeon. which happens. It's very common. If people are you're just not paying attention and get excited. And we actually last year, on the first light bite, we go, okay, it's legal light, drop them down. It was still dark. Still have all the blue lights on in the boat so we can see. The guy says, instant, hooked up. Everybody's reeling them up. It's pitch dark. And he's fighting it. And I didn't see the rod doing the tugs. And I just thought, man, it's either really big or it's not a king. And we're all on one side of the boat. He's like, it's coming up, it's coming up. All of a sudden, behind us, you just hear this loud noise. Bang! On the boat. He had a 6-foot sturgeon and didn't know it. It jumped out of the water, landed in the boat. It started knocking over the coffee cups and everything in the dark. A couple of the guys had never seen a sturgeon before. So they were legitimately getting on the seats. They didn't know what it was. And then they tried to grab it, which you never grab because the scoots are sharp. So it was chaos, and everybody's laughing and hearing this go on in the dark because there's other fishermen around. But yeah, you got to be cognizant you're not too close to the bottom.
Does that keep the gobbers and the squawfish off of it too? Or 'cause I have a lot of issues when I'm fishing the Cowlitz and the Kalama. I rarely have that issue, but if I'm in the Columbia, it's like all you catch.
Yeah, it depends on where you are. You know, I also I get some incidental fish, but what I tell people, if you're getting squawfish or what's the other silver one?
Peamouth chub.
Yeah, there's a couple of junk fish, but if you get them while hover fishing, you're setting the hook fast enough. Because most of the time their mouth isn't big enough to get around the hook. So if you see something, I'd rather you hook a pike minnow, or a sucker fish, than be too late and miss. So I take it as a good sign. All summer long, when we're fishing for steelhead on the lower Columbia, we're getting incidental fish. I tell people that even the junk fish and the small fish are on the same line as the steelhead. So if you're ever anchored up on the Columbia and you see if you're looking straight back behind your boat and you see a bunch of fish jumping on this line over here, repeatedly surfacing, you need to adjust your anchor and move over. Because the small fish to the big fish like the same water. They like that right temperature, right speed. If you stay on that line, you'll notice, oh man, we're not getting as many bites. As soon as you fade over, you start picking up fish. So you can't ignore the signs. I wouldn't be turned off if we were getting a few junk fish. Sometimes it can be ridiculous. Like if we were getting like 10 or 15 of them. If it was 3 or 4, it would be
I got a question for you. How long are you keeping your eggs, your homemade made up eggs, either in the refrigerator or refrigerant? I know for you use a lot, but for the average person who got them in your freezer or refrigerator, what's the lifespan of those?
Well, there's a lot of feedback on that. People say you can prolong them by putting them in borax. You can prolong them by vacuum sealing them. You can putting them in your freezer. I think it changes them. No matter what, it changes them. They're not as good. And honestly, it's been so long since I've had them for any period of time. I already ordered 40 pounds of salmon eggs from a Native American seafood place, and we'll cure those up, and they're going to be gone by September 10th, September 15th, and I'll order more, or we will have caught enough females. I also think if you are able to get your hands on fresh bait, that's preferred, right? And there's also definitely something to using eggs that are not from that area. I don't know what it is, but if you can get eggs from a different river other than the river that you're fishing, I think the fish know better. I think king salmon would rather eat coho and pink salmon eggs from a tributary river than eat their own. It will eat their own, because it'll work, but I think there's some little science to it there. Where it's maybe, I don't know if they're trying to kill off the other gene pool or what, but it seems like it's a better bite. Which is why the store-bought eggs actually work, because they're not from here. they might seem a little more cured, or a little more, like, for lack of a better term, not as fresh. But they're not from around here. So there's been times where there's, over the last 20 years, where there has been a shortage on eggs. And we had to buy store-bought eggs in a pinch here and there for a trip or two. But we caught fish, and you're still adding additional new scent to it the night before. You're still adding sand shrimp to it, so they do work. And before all these other coon shrimp companies came along, everybody used rays. Everybody used those small jar rays. And I caught plenty of steelhead. There was no argument there. If you ask anyone, what's the best bait to use? Ray's coon shrimp. If you asked 10 years ago, what do you use? Ray's coon shrimp. But now you ask them, there's a couple different brands that people are now preferring, because they're hitting. I think they're just hitting the market bigger, and so now that's predominantly what the good people are using. So I don't necessarily we buy 50-pound blocks of coon shrimp and separate them out and cure them, but that's just to save money and to have a little more control over what's in it. It's not because these other brands don't work; they do work. So I wouldn't let that turn you off. If you're like, I can't get my hands on fresh eggs. They do work, and then once you catch one, you will have fresh eggs. But lots of the Native American fisheries and seafood places that sell seafood, you can give them a call, and you tell them how many pounds you want, and even if it's only a few, and they'll hold them for you, and you can buy them and carry them up yourself.
How much lead do you typically run?
The least amount possible, and it's okay if you don't have 1 ounce or 1/4 ounce or 1/2 ounce ball weight. You can use a piece of pencil lead. A 1/4 inch hollow core pencil lead, I think, is 1 inch is an ounce. I think. If not, it's a 1/2 ounce for sure. So, a 1 inch long piece of pencil lead will be the same as, you want to use the lightest possible, because again, you don't want them to feel it. The least you can have on there, the better. But yeah, even in big water, drain out some of the bigger holes on the cowlet, 1/2 ounce, 1/4 ounce, non-windy day, least amount possible.
So when is your hover fishing season? If someone wants to book a trip with you, in what general area are you there? Do you do this at then?
Above Bonneville, August 18th to October 10th. Up above Bonneville, between Stevenson and Hood River. And then October 10th through the end of November, we'll bounce between the Chehalis and the Cowlitz for Coho, where we'll side drift eggs. So the very same eggs, but I won't add the sodium sulfite.
So you use everything for the coho except for the salt?
Yeah. I won't add the sodium sulfite, but I usually add a little bit of brown sugar.
Okay.
But now we're side drifting eggs.
Yeah.
So not as reliant on your reaction time, because you've already gone by. The Cowlitz is a great place to drift if you've never drifted the lower Cowlitz between Castle Rock and Lexington Bridge, because it's so slow. So if this is upriver, I can turn the whole boat sideways and drift backwards. So we're basically dragging the bait down the river. Instead of fishing, in fast water, you have to keep the bow pointed upriver, and you have to cast at an angle and control yourself. But on the slower Cowlitz, it's really cool to be able to just turn the boat completely sideways, facing upriver. Everybody's fishing off the same side, and you're dragging it. So the boat goes over the fish before your bait does. So when they grab it, you're already behind them, because they're facing upriver, you're over here. So now when they grab it, it immediately goes to the corner of the mouth, and they start. You can tell right away.
And what's your cost per seat for that season?
For hover fishing, this is right around $225. For coho, we're right around $200. Yeah.
Do you guys do hover fishing for steelhead season too, or is it just vary on the seasons?
Yeah, no, hover fishing is generally a salmon fishing technique.
Oh
Yeah. Yeah. You do, like I said, you will get incidental steelhead, but
Well, yeah, I'm sure you will.
yeah.
Yeah.
When do you go Drano?
Well, it just depends on how good it is and any closures or what's going on. But we're either going to be the mouth of the Klickitat by Hood River, or we're going to be in Drano, out in front of Drano. It just kind of depends on what's going on. But generally that August 18th through October 10th.
And the same technique you're using hover fishing over
Yeah.
in Drano.
Yeah, and it's not braggadocious at all to say like this is they know what's up, but there's a few other guys that have it super dialed in, but you're talking 100 or more boats that are trolling to about 30 hover fishermen, depending on where you are. That's a pretty good average ratio depending on where you are between Hood River and Drano, or Hood River and Bonneville. That's a pretty good ratio for those areas. And out of the Hover River fishing guides that are doing that, about 3 or 4 have it super dialed in where we're done by 8 or 9 a.m. So you're leaving all of that competition out there. When you really go light and you keep it small and you keep everybody focused and you get your scent dialed in, it's fast. And you have better odds also because the limit is higher above Bonneville. It can be hatchery or native in most cases. You're allowed 1 adult plus jacks. I think the rule is though, once you get your adult, you're done. So you're hoping for your bonus jack a few of them before you get your adult. But that's far better than the lower river, where they might have a hatchery only 1 fish limit. It's kind of the difference, like early summer, May 15th through June 10th or something like that. You can get Springer, you can get a steelhead, you can get steelhead and Jack Kings, right? But then right around that June 10th time frame, it's 1 steel. Maybe a sockeye if the run's going. So anywhere, we are always going to try to fish where the odds, the percentages are higher. And that's the reason for bouncing between the Chehalis and the Cowlitz after October 10th, because although you can't keep kings in the Cowlitz most of the time in the fall, you can keep up to 3 steelhead per person, and or you can keep a couple of adult coho and jacks. So you have higher limits with the Chehalis and the Cowlitz than you do in other places.
Do you have a YouTube channel?
No, I don't have a YouTube, but there are we do have a few YouTube videos,
Okay.
but I haven't monetized them.
Do you ever run coon shrimp while you're hover fishing?
No, because you'll notice what's not on the table. Anise. Coon shrimp are lacquered in anise. I know that anise is a popular scent for salmon. It's never been good for me on eggs in the hover fishing in the fall. Anise works great for kings and coho and other scenarios. It works great for steelhead. But I don't know why. Trust me, I tried it all. Yeah. Well, especially when there's a sand shrimp shortage. Now we got a big problem. Now we're trying everything in the sink, and because there has been sand shrimp shortages, I do know that the cured sand shrimp that are dead and cured do work very well. There's been times where we had no choice. You could drive 45 minutes to an hour in any direction, you couldn't get sand shrimp anywhere.
Right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're soft shelled right now.
Yeah.
I just talked to Ray's Bait today, and they can't pump them. They die instantly because they're so soft shelled.
Yeah.
They can't withstand the pressure of pumping.
Yeah.
So right now you can't get live sand shrimp.
Yeah.
In Washington anyways.
Yeah.
Oregon coast might be different. But
Yeah,
yes,
and
it
talk
happens.
about even when you get it when it's good. Talk about a live bait that doesn't last long. And they are very sensitive. I mean, you got maybe 3 days in the fridge before they start turning. So we go through buckets of them, but we don't keep them. We're just cycling through them so fast, but yeah, make sure to buy them the night before and figure out who's got them before you leave, because you're gonna either that or the cured ones. But yeah, up at Scanawag, I know. There was a time where we used pre-bought eggs, we used pre-bought sand shrimp, and we caught kings up there on bobbers. The same as we caught them when we had fresh up there too. So Just depends on what you got. You're better off going and knowing than not going and not knowing. So,
When it comes to the sweet and salty, where do you consider that line? Like the upper Cowlitz salty or up above Bonneville salty or?
no, the Cowlitz is definitely sugar based.
That's what I was thinking, it's still way close, so.
They are getting to the hatchery with sea lice on.
Okay.
They're getting from Astoria to the Barrier Dam hatchery with in less than 48 hours. And in most cases, they're trucking them back down to the I-5 bridge. If you've been watching the fish count on the Barrier Dam site, weekly update, the last few weeks, they've been trucking a ton of steelhead back down. So if you're fishing from Toledo up, the last couple of weeks, you should have been doing very well because the daily numbers combined with the rerun numbers, you should be doing very well. We drove by Blue Creek yesterday because I dropped my boat off at the boat dock in Mossy Rock. And just the line of fishermen that we saw, there was like 4 fishermen. There was 5 fish on the bank. It's all steelhead.
Mhm.
And that was late afternoon. So imagine if you were there in the morning or during the day and you're actually, trying, you'd probably do just as good, if not better. Any other questions about hover fishing or any other fishery? Cool.